Hello, my dear friends. A very warm welcome on another session for Salesforce Advanced Admin session. In today's module, we are going to cover another major admin topic, that is your visual flows. It is another automation tool that helps you in understanding, or that helps a service agent. If you provide any facility to a service client, like for any hospitals, you provide any hospitality point of view, if you say, right, they ask you a series of questions. You go and you're sitting at your home and you call any hospital, right? What do they ask before making an appointment, right? They ask you a series of questions, and these questions are a pictorial representation, right? For first question, you have that, what is your name? They type in your name. Are you feeling sick? They will mark it as yes. So there are a series of questions on a individual page, and those pages can be further moved on to next and next, and next clicks are available on each and every screen, so that they can ask a multiple questions regarding your symptoms, right? So this is how, or in this scenario, a visual flow comes into picture. This visual flows gives us an option of asking multiple questions to a particular individual. The call center agent or the service agent, they ask a series of questions to the customer, and it becomes easy for the service agent to accumulate your data and redirect you to a specific person. Okay, this is all about visual flows. In our previous module, what we did was the assignment rules and the escalation rule that we did. Hope you guys have done or created your own assignment rule and your own escalation rule within your org. Okay, so let's begin with today's topic, that is the visual flow. What exactly is visual flow? I have told you, I have given you a brief introduction about it. We are going to see it within our org, how we can create a visual flow and how it becomes easy for a service agent to perform those actions, because for any service industry we use visual flows. That um, any service industry that has a calling interaction with your customer, then we use a set of visual flow, and how we can benefit with those flows, right? So let's begin. I have told you what visual flow is. It automates business process by building an application, is known as a flow. Okay. You can automate it, you can auto launch the flow, or you can have a screen flow depending on a particular person. You open the record of that particular person, and in that you have you can see a flow launcher. You can launch that flow and can fill in all the details. Okay. Next is visual workflows allow administrator to create flows which are visible to users, and when they enter information in it and submit them, the action gets executed. Okay. You might create some record. Suppose for a particular person, they ask a series of questions to book an appointment to a doctor, and at the end you created a record for an appointment with a particular doctor of that particular customer. So you can create a record, you can update a record, right? If you want to reschedule your record, it's going to ask you some set of questions. If you want to insert some record, it's going to ask you some set of questions, and then you can insert it, right? It helps the service agent to navigate through a series of questions specified on multiple screens. As I have told you, suppose there are 10 screens, okay, and there are two questions per screen, and you call a service agent. He asks, or he or she asks you on the first screen, what is your name, what is your age. Okay, depending on your age, then you should be navigated onto the third screen, right? So it is going to navigate you to the third screen, skipping in the second screen. Okay, and the third screen is going to ask you that you are having a pain in stomach, you are having a headache, or all these kinds of symptom questions that they're going to ask, right? So they have bifurcated different questions on different screens, and at the end of your flow, it's going to analyze all those conditions and going to appoint you with a particular doctor and checking on your his or her ability. This is an example that I have given you, but different visual flows works in the similar sense. Okay, you have a series of screens, and in that screens you can have any dynamic quotient, you can have fixed quotients, you can have static quotients. This is all what a visual flow consists of. Okay, they are very easy to create. We just need to drag and drop kind of things can happen. We can increase the complexity by including in our development, our customization, but we can also do a simpler process of by using in the standard functionalities that are present in the visual flow. Okay, so without wasting any time, I'll move on to my org, and you can see this is my org in a lightning view. You guys are familiar with it? Yes. In the lightning view, I wanted so that I can add the flow within my page. So we need to move into our lightning environment. I'll go to setup, the gear icon above, and clicking on the setup. It will navigate me to the setup page, and therein we will search for flows. It's an automation tool. It's a process automation tool. Process automation tool. You have workflows, you have process builder. These two we have done it, and now we will be working on the flows. This is a major. These three are the major automation tools that we have. Okay, a visual flow. I'll create it. Is going to give me a view of all flows, active flows, inactive flows. I can see all the other ones. So I will create a new flow. Now, there are two types of flows, a screen flow and an auto-launched flow. Normally, if you want to fire the flow by yourself and want to show it on a particular screen of a particular record, then you will use a screen flow. Most of the time, you are going to use a screen flow. Auto-launched flow happens when you have to launch a flow from another flow, then you can use an auto-launch flow. Okay. So I'll be creating a screen flow. I'll click on create. Now, what here you see is a dashboard area, a screen area from where you are going to build in your visual workflow. Okay. It gives you a start screen. From here, everything is going to start. What all elements do you have? I'll navigate to the PPT and will show you. It consists of step elements, the input screens. It consists of the screen elements. It consists of the decision boxes. It consists of assignment rules, assignment screen. It consists of a loop. It consists of resources, variables you can create. Resources are the variables that have been created, okay? And other variables you have, and the collection variables like a list you want to store in, okay? Then you can also do so with the help of visual workflows. These are some of the things that we have. I'll show you guys one by one what all things we have. See, we can have a screen in here. What I'm doing is I am dragging it up and I will drop it here. What it opened me is it showed me that this is a screen in which you can do anything, starting with configurations and to customization. All the things can be done with the help of Visual Flow. Okay. See, you can have an input type of all these things. The standard and other things are available as a what we say as the input parameters, configuration input parameters that we can have. A display text gives you a section in which you can find in or write something, or you can call in some dynamic values from the previous screens also. It's a display text area. Okay. Now, what is going to happen is in the initial step, this is your new screen. New actions are all the customization options that we have within our workflow, visual workflow. Okay, it is called a visual workflow, it is called a flow, it is called a cloud builder, anything can be called. Okay, see, you can have filter by categories, multiple categories we have, and what all actions we have. Okay, we have the quick actions in here. We can send an email through here. We can submit for approval. We can call in Apex. We can call in log a call or any standard action, custom action we can perform in here, and we can do a multiple of things, right, through this process. Okay. You click on user, what all user actions you can see. If you click on group, what all group actions you can do. Add a record, quick action, new record, new group you can create, knowledge article, contact, what all actions can you perform on a contact, create new contact you can do. Okay. If you click on that, you will find in all the details, what all the mandatory sections you want to include something or not. This is what we can do on a action basis. Okay, on different objects you have different actions. New account you can create an account. In case you might be having an option of creating a case, logging a call, new child case. All these things are the actions that we can perform within our flow, and they are all configuration based. You do not need to write any code. You do not need to move into your org to create. So if you want to call in a subflow, means you are creating one flow and there is another flow in the similar fashion and you want to call that subflow, then you can do so through the subflow, and you need to drag and drop in here. You need to specify which resource or which flow you want to call in. If I have another flow, it is going to call that flow. It is going to ask in which all parameter values that I want to pass in, and I can pass those values. Okay. Now, these are all the interactions, what all we can do. Now we come to logical assignments, the logical things that we can do within our flow. We can do some assignment. Okay, what does assignment means? Assignment says if you have uh, a value and you want to assign it to a particular variable so that you can use that variable within your flow anywhere. So we use this assignment block. You got it? Suppose I have the record ID and I want to assign, depending on that record ID, to a list. Okay, I have a record ID of an account and I want to fetch in all the details of that account. I want to store it within a flow variable so that I can call that value again and again, so that ease of performing the action can be done. Like what happens is if you run some query at the back end and you want to fetch in all the details, right? So you do not need to go in the backend again and again and fetch one value. Suppose for account you fetch an account name, then you fetch again the billing address, then you fetch again the phone number, right? It's not a feasible solution, right? You cannot call multiple times. So what happens is you store that into a collection variable within our initial step, and then you can use it. I'm going to show it. I'm going to show it. No need to worry about it. A decision box happens if is something yes, depending on yes or no you want to do something, then you can have the decision box. On yes you want to move one path, on no you want to move to another path. So this is what a decision box does. A loop does is if you want to run over some iteration, then you choose a loop. Okay. If you have a collection variables and you want to assign it to a particular individual, then you will use a loop. Now we can create a record. We can update a record. Okay. Only one record depending on the ID we can fetch in, or the record variable we can have and make sure the ID field. Okay. We can specify the record variable on depending on that ID. We can if you want to create a record, so what it's going to do is the variable gives you a field of an ID. Whenever the record is created, its ID will be stored in that particular variable. You're going to create one record, right? After the creation of a record, the Salesforce is going to generate its 15-digit ID, and that ID will be stored within the variable that we are going to create in here. Okay. In the similar fashion, we can update a record. Update a record, use the ID field to specify the value. So we can specify in the ID and we can store in the details, or we can update those details if you want to update any of the particular record. In get record details, depending on the ID of that particular object, we can fetch in all the details of that particular record. We use get records and assignment so that we can assign some value to that particular record, and depending on that record we can fetch in all the details of that particular record. And if you want to delete some record, you can give in the ID of that particular record and that will be deleted. Okay. So without wasting any time, I'll create one simple flow in which I'll have two screens so that we can see in what all functionalities do we have within our flow. So our initial step will be to fetch in the record details. We will be creating a screen flow and we are going to attach that within our account object, that is import wizard 1. Okay, I'll add that in here so that we can see the flow, how it's going to run. You guys are clear with it? Right. So before starting with any of the things, I'll show you the manage also. It is going to show me the list of the resources that I have for that particular flow. Okay, I can create, firstly what I'm going to do is to put or to fetch the dynamic record ID of that particular record. As I told you, I'm going to put that flow in here, how it is going to fetch this record ID on its own. Right? I do not want to enter in manually how I am going to fetch in that dynamic ID, and where I am going to show that dynamic ID. So what we will do is, I'll show you again. In the manager elements you have and the manager. And in the manager you can create a new resource saying a variable. We have multiple options: variable, constants, text type choices, radio choice set, stage, right? Pick list, record choice set, and pick list choice set choices we have. Okay, I'll choose in a variable to set in that record ID. I'll give it a name, record ID. Okay, this is a temporary variable of a flow. For this flow, if the value is assigned to this particular record, this particular variable, it's going to stay with you the entire flow runs. Any variable that we are going to create. Data type, we can have a text since ID is a string operator, so we can have a text in here because we do not have a string data type. We'll have a text data type and we will use this value. Where are we going to use this? As an input and or as an output variable that we can have within our flow, right? So we can use this as an input and output variable. If you not specify this as an input variable, you cannot pass this uh, attribute into any standard component, configuration component, or to a customization component. Suppose you are building a lightning component, your customization. You are building a visual force page, your customizations. You will not be able to call in that particular variable if you haven't marked it as an input variable. Okay. And output in the similar fashion, if you want to return the value to the flow, okay, then you will have to use this as an output variable. So I'll click on done. It has created a record ID variable. Now what I am going to do is I am going to get records. Okay. What this is going to do is it is going to fetch in the all the details of the particular record ID, or it is going to fetch in all the records. That depends on our condition. I'll give it a label. Okay, fetch record details, I've given it. For which object we are going to do it? We are going it for an account object. So now what happens is it asks for filter account records. Get all account records. So we can get the all records and we can store it into a list or a collection of variables. But what do we want is we want to run the flow on a one particular variable. So what are we going to do is we will find in a conditions when the condition is met. So what will be a condition is the ID field, the account ID should be equal to a variable, and that will be your visual flow variable. Okay. I have matched that to a record ID variable that I have just created it. Okay. Now what happens is the record ID variable we are having in, and that is going to match with that ID variable and is going to fetch me that account detail record. Okay. You guys are clear with it till this point? Now it is going to ask me, depending on matching on the ID, do you want to show how many records? I want to show all the records or the first record. But depending on that ID, only one record I'll be getting. So I can select the first record. But if I do not have any condition, then I can select for all records. Or I can select for the first record to get in the first record of the list. Okay. Where to store field values? If we are calling in the fields of that particular account, suppose phone number, industry, billing address, billing street, shipping address, all these details, birthday, all these details, do we want to store in a single variable that will be a collection or a record variable, or do you want to store it in separate variables? Suppose billing address is stored in billing address variable, one variable like we created for a record ID. We can create any variable for birthday, for name, for phone number. For all those details, we can have individual variables. or we can have a collected variable which is going to store in every details. You can see I can search for a field, suppose birth billing address I have or billing city I have, then I'll have to create one variable that is going to store that billing city. In the similar manner, I need to have another field, suppose billing latitudes. I will have to have a variable. I'll have to create one variable, new resource or new variable, so that I can store the value of that. Or what I can do is I can select that store it in only one variable. And how we are going to do that? This is a record variable. Okay, like you have an account record and it is going to store in all the details of the account, which all fields we are going to specify. I'll create a new resource, and what type of resource it will be? It will be a variable itself. I can specify account record variable. I've given it a name. What data type it should be? It should be a record, right? It is going to have multiple values. So I want it to be as a record of which object, for account object. I want this as an input and an output variable. So I'll mark those checkbox and I will mark it as done. Now what I am having is in this record variable, now I am having account record variable. Now which all fields I want in to store in that variable? See, you can see the ID field is by default present. I can have phone field, phone. I can add more fields like billing address. I'll have the whole address. I can have industry field. I do not need to specify individual variables now. Industry field is available. Now any other field you want to add in? Type we can add. Account type. Okay, that's it. And I am going to mark this as done. So what did we create first? We created a filter in which we selected the ID on the record ID. This record ID we are going to fetch in dynamically, and I'll show you how we can do it. Now we have a variable in which we have stored the ID, and that depending on that ID we have fetched in all the details of that particular record, and I'll mark it as done. So what happens is now this is having all the details of a particular account that we have opened it. Okay. Now what we are going to do is we are going to attach in a few screens. We'll give it a label, first screen. Okay. Now what we are going to do is we are going to add in one uh, checkbox section or a radio button section as you wish. I'll add a checkbox. Okay, or a checkbox group we can add a checkbox group. Okay, I'll give it a label, first checkbox group. Data type text, default value, enter a choice that I can have in is Apple. We need to have the value of all the choices that we want in that particular checkbox and stored in a variable. So what we are going to do is select choice as the resource type. Previously we used to select variable, right? Because we wanted an individual variable to store in the values. So this is a choice that we need to have. We'll give an API name. Suppose I'll give an gold and silver. Okay, the API name that I gave. Label, if I want, I'll add the label as gold. Data type, what we need to select is text, because the default value for all uh, data type within the choices is text. What value do we need to store in? We can select in gold. Okay, this will be the label and this will be the value of that particular choice. I'll click on done. Now what you can see is I have a choice as gold and that is a text. Since the data type required is text, we cannot change it. So we have to create the variable of the data type text itself. I'll create one more new resource. I'll create one more for choice, say silver, and I'll specify the label also as silver. Okay. Now with the silver value, the data type that we are going to select is again the text. As I told you, the default data type is text. We'll specify the value as silver. I am going to save it. Done. So what we have are two variables that we have added, two choices that we have added. I'll click on the add choice to enter in another value. See, you can see I entered two choices and it gave me the two portions done, right? Clear? Now if I want to add in some other input as an address, date you have, if I put in the date, see, it is going to give me the exact drop down list. I'll select the date, um, first date variable. Okay, API name, it's going to set in there. If I need to show in some error message, okay, the default value, if I want to select some, that I can do so, else it can remain as it is. Display image and all those things that we want, we can add it in there. And pick list also we can have, radio buttons we can have, text, toggle view, URLs, long text area, multi-select pick list. Every value that we want, we can add it. Okay, if I add in the pick list, then I'll have to select in the pick list choices. Okay, I'll select in the new resource, we have pick list choice set. If I want to pick in any pick list from my object itself, then I can use the pick list choice set. If I see for account, do I have any pick list values? Pick list. If I have any pick list value, it's going to show me in here. Rating, industry, ownership. These are all the pick list values. If we select on the industry, default order of fields, we can select an ascending, descending, or the default order. I'll give in the name account industry pick list. Okay, and I will mark it as done. And for the choice account picklist industry, I'll select, it is going to show me all the industry fields for that particular. I'll give it the name account industry picklist. Okay, we can select the data type of it, right? But for the picklist, if I select in the default ones, then I'll have to add in the choices. Okay, I'll add a choice, I'll add silver, Now it is going to have two choices, and if you want to have a default value, we can have a default value. Okay, and this is like, I'll say choice picklist. Okay. Oh, I choices picklist done. By default, it's going to show me none. Else, it's going to show me the default values. And if I want to have in some random text for debugging purpose, okay. So the display text does what is, if I want to fetch in some previous values or for a debugging purpose or for just a simple typing purpose. Suppose I want to give the header. Okay. If I will give a header above, then I can specify that which field we want. Okay. Did I miss something in it? No. So I'll give an API name. It's a default display text. And if I want to, it's API name. If I want to insert any field within it, since we have fetched in all the record details, I will fetch in all record details, right? Or we can have dot ID field, or we can have any field that we want to have for that particular account record variable. Okay, which value do we want? Account number, billing address. Okay, I fetched in the billing address. I'll remove this up. Account record variable, this is what we gave the name. Okay, I'll remove this header. We gave the name, right? And in this, what error do we have? If I say the default value is gold, I'll mark it as done. Yes. Now what is going to happen is, I've stored the value in account record variable. I wanted to show you this account record variable. Then in account record variable, I can have in the account record variable, I can add more fields. Account record variable, which field do we want is, if I want in the name, I'll click on name, account name. Okay, it is going to give me those details if I have the billing address. Or if I want in to have a record variable type, account type, it's going to give me that. I'll say address. It's a display text area, we can write in anything. Okay, in the similar manner we can write in name and we can write in type. I'll mark it as done. I have all the values: pick list, account pick list, date field, checkbox field. I have all the values in here, right? First date variable, account industry pick list, choice pick list, and the display text. I'll mark it as done. Now I'll add one more screen, or we can create a record, or we can add one more screen. I'll just show you what details that we have filled in. Check filled in details. Okay. Now what I am going to do is mark in a display text box, and this display text box is going to give me the value of the selected ones, okay, for which industry field we have selected in. Okay, I'll select that. Which industry pick list? Now it is going to give me selected industry pick list. Okay, the next that we are going to do is, sorry, sorry. Next, what I am going to do is I am going to fetch in the choice pick list, selected choice pick list. The next thing that we can fetch in is diff display default display text. We have already printed in for, oh, I wrote the wrong spelling. We can check in the first selected checkbox. It is going to give me all the values of the checkbox that I have filled in. Okay, so I'm by this means what I'm trying to show you is that we can fetch in every detail that we have filled in prior, that can be rotated within our flow itself. Now date selected, done. I'll give it a name, final display. I'll save this up, done. Now what I am going to do is I am going to link all these. I'll click on it, I'll drag it, and will move it to the bottom circle of the second one. From the second, I am going to click and drag it to the bottom of the third one. And from the third one, I am going to drag and attach it to the fourth one. Now what is happening is with the start, it is now being linked to all the three different screens, whether it being a fetch record details or display details or check-in details. Now what I am going to do is, okay, I'll save this up. After saving this up, we'll have to specify the label. First flow. It is a screen flow that we have selected in. I am going to save this up. Now what happens is it is going to analyze it, and it's going to analyze if there are any errors within it. In here it is going to, it can show me if the flow is without any error, it's not going to show anything. If the flow has a warnings, it is going to show me a yellow triangular sign with all the warnings in it. And if I have done something wrong in it, it is going to show me a circle, like the one that we saw, like the circle with a diagonal cross. It's going to show me that there is a major error that you need to resolve it. And the triangular sign shows warning. Warnings can be ignored. Now the next thing is how we can add this flow to our home screen or a record screen. Firstly, this flow is inactive, so it is not going to do anything. So we will move back. We will mark this flow as active. Once this flow is made active, you cannot do any changes in this flow. We need to create a version, another version of it, and that version is going to do the changes. Okay, and that change in by doing this, we can preserve our what existing flow or what existing part is working in. We can check that, and it helps us to analyze it. We are going to go in the flow, the first flow that we have created just now. And what we are going to do is we have the version 1. Till now I can edit anything in this version, but when I will activate this version, I will not be able to do any changes in this version now. Now I will have to save as a new version, then only I'll be able to use it. Now, the status you can see is active now. It was previously inactive. What we are going to do is uh, in our module 10 of the admin basic, what we did was we edited the page, right? We edited the Lightning app builder page. What we are going to do is we are going to do the same thing again. We clicked on the gear icon and we selected on edit page, right? We can directly call in the flow. You can see the flow section. We have created one flow, and that flow we are going to drag and drop in here. And what we are going to do is you can see the record ID variable that we have passed in. You can see it in here. It is going to fetch in the record ID, pass record ID into this variable. If you do not select it, it is not going to receive the record ID of that particular page. Okay. If we click on that, the record ID variable that we have assigned within our flow, it's going to fetch in our record ID. I'll open the flow. You guys got it right. We created a record ID variable, and I have told you that from where we are going to pass in that value. We have passed it from our page itself, this record ID variable that we have created in. And initially it is blank. Now what happens is when we are launching it from the flow and we have passed the record ID into that record ID variable, it's going to pass in or fetch in the values. Now I am going to save this up and we will move back. What will happen is we will have that flow within our record page, and that record page is going to launch in the flow. Okay, we missed in something, I think. Okay guys, I looked into the problem. The problem was I have to create another version for it because I have activated the older version. So I have activated this version now. What mistake that we did was, I'll show you guys. In the display screen, we have the display text, right? And in display text, its data type is text. Okay, its data type is text, and we took in one address field in here. It's a location field. So we cannot have that within our display text field since it already says display text. Any text value that you want to have in, you can give in. Okay. Complete billing address I cannot give because it contains the longitudes, latitudes, and the complete address format of the particular record. So I have taken into account the industry, the name, and the type. Okay. And I have activated this version. So when I refreshed it, I was able to see this flow is being launched with the particular record ID of that particular person is fetched, and we can have in those values. You can see in this is the display text that we gave in. The name it gave me as import wizard 1. I haven't passed it. It's the dynamic population fetching in the record ID of that particular record. Import wizard 1, it gave me the type as customer it gave me. We didn't have any industry, so the industry field is blank. We can give in the industry and we can fetch in, right? So these are all the default fields that we have given, the configurable fields. If I select in the checkbox, you can see I can select in both the values. I can select in one value, right? The gold I have selected, the time and date I have selected. If I select in today's date, it gave me today's date, right? Industry field, I haven't specified any picklist value. I gave the picklist value of the account object. I can see in, I can fill in agriculture, I can fill in any healthcare, I can fill in any fields. These are all the picklists that are being found out from the object level itself. These are the fields that we have selected in manually for the choice of a particular picklist. You got it? What happens again in Flow? We added two screens in there, right? This was going to fetch all the details. This is the first screen that we saw in our page, and this is the second screen. How we can navigate to this screen is by clicking on the next button. If we click on next, you can see in that what picklist value we have selected. Technology, it gave me that value. What choice picklist values I have selected, it gave me that. What is a checkbox field, it gave me that. And I've selected in some value again, so it gave me all the values, right? I have selected the different names I have given in. See, for the checkbox, I have selected the date variable, and for the date, I selected the checkbox. If we interchange it, I have got the values of it, right? First checkbox field, it gave me as gold because we selected in as gold. If I go to previous values, I have selected it as gold, right? And if I go to next, the selected checkbox is gold, and the date selected is 19th August. That's what we did, right? We can go previous, finish, next. These are all the standard functionalities of the flow itself. You can see in there pause, previous, finish, or pause, previous, next. These are all the screens that we can have in there. If I select in the footer, it is going to show me that I can deselect also the footer. And if I want to control the navigation, I do not want a pause button, I can remove that. Pause button needs to be enabled within your org. By default, it is not enabled. For this, we need to enable pause is available only if the user pause flow is enabled in your org process automation setting. We haven't enabled it yet. That's why we are not able to see the pause button. Else, we can remove the previous button also. What will happen is, in this place, if I go on next, I'll not be able to see a previous button. I'll not be able to navigate back. There might be some scenarios when you have done the payment, right? In your payment process, if you go, you have entered in your card details, you have selected the payment as done. Now you cannot go back. So there is no previous button enabled in this situation. You can just have the next or the finish button, right? Okay. Now, if I click on finish, the flow will be done. All the values will be erased from this, and all the records or anything, if we haven't saved those records anywhere else, we can update the record also. We can fetch in the record ID and we can feed in all the variables that we want to store in that particular record. We can also do that. We can also delete the record. This is all the functionalities that we can do with the help of a flow, right? We have activated that flow. We have placed that into our lightning page. Next, previous things we have done, and it dynamically fetch the values of the record. I hope you guys are clear with what Visual Flow can do and its vast usage in the service industry. Okay, in any project you will go, you will be having for sure, if that client is a service provider, any electricity provider, hospitality, or hospital, or hotel chains, anywhere, if they are providing in the input to the customers, they are having a telephone service, then they are surely going to have a visual flow, and it's a very good automation tool that we can have within our org. So please go and practice the basic things that we can have in a visual flow. I have told you that which all functionalities, get a record, all those things we can do. Your task is to save those records. I haven't shown you how you can save this record. This is your task. Explore it. It's a drag and drop functionalities. It's very simple to use. So understand it and create it within your org. So that's it in today's presentations. Hope you will go and practice it within your org. Thank you. Have a great week ahead. Bye bye.